All right, I think I have this. There's one strong statement here. I think I don't like to read all the time, or even a whole lot, but I think it might be important. Here we go. All right. Are we on? Okay. I'd like to read now a statement from a. This is the same issue of the Quincunx. The subtitle of the Quincunx is "Further Bard's Eye Views from the Mythic Vantage of Santa Cruz." On the second side of this one, which came out last June 13th on Yeats's birthday, I include a column of what I call here some socio-political commentary. This will help to establish some of the political ideas that we've been working on, and so on. Finally, I must comment anew on the continuing political mess in this stumbling, bumbling country of ours. I have often communicated my belief that things have gotten so bad, so far from the expected rigor of constitutional authority in the machinations of government at the federal level, that we might as well start all over again. An idea that I have neatly encoded into the bunker stinker lemma. To put it bluntly, we need a new country. And so, at this latter-day juncture, over 4 years since the onset of this ridiculous Iraq fiasco, I believe we need to reestablish some principles and goals. In the first place, I believe that we must remain adamant with regard to our initial response vis-a-vis this idiotic war and the concomitant erosion of our civil liberties, our national pride, our good name in the global community, and even our sense of ourselves as a separate, sovereign people. Our insistences must continue to include the following. In implementing his decision to go to war against Iraq, George W. Bush, an obvious warmongering moron, committed a war crime of the highest order, and therefore should be brought to account as soon as that can be made possible. Next, that even certain members of Congress have been reprehensibly complicit also, and should be held responsible for their abandonment of constitutional principles and abdication of their own constitutionally specified duties as elected representatives of the people. Also, that this country has now drifted so far into the mire of militarism that we must implement some sort of corrective countermeasure lest our founding principles become submerged completely in this current tide of warmongering and saber-rattling insanity that has beset our national purpose. That votes are meaningless when elected representatives ignore the obvious mandate of the electorate, and therefore that some other agency of political force must be brought to bear upon these namby-pamby political professionals who have eschewed their explicit constitutional duty. Ironically, there's the word eschew in the context of Anna Eshoo being our congressional representative. And of course, an obvious bunker stinker lemma comes up. Let's eschew Eshoo. That's the obvious lemma. To put it more broadly, this looks like a job for some superhuman agencies who should right now come oozing out of our national woodwork like sap from a sacred pine tree, or if not superhuman, at least supra-individual, that is, at the level of collaborative action. For example, I expect that the Universal Guitarmy, or Guitar Army if you like, as embodied here in the US of A, should have some say in this, inter alia. For me, this is genuine and profound fun, this business of ravioliution, but it's not just fun, it's also the making of a new society through the amplifying transformation of the older into the new. Real change, what we've all been waiting and working for. But how can we now know that this is the denouement, the big-time revelation of some powerful secret into the common understanding? As Norman O'Brown suggests, the defining nature of civilization is not a criterion to be reached, but an underlying foundational principle that is not generally consciously realized or understood by the common citizen. As if it were finally time for something to come out of the closet, Something huge like the golem, but not as monstrous and not as nesciently sluggish or as cruelly dumb. But how shall we know that that unnamed thing a building is now, for us in our time? As I see it, many energetic and active sub-networks of society have been converging and combining into larger and larger networks of communication and information transfer, call it what you will. And it is the natural function and responsibility of the bard, of the chief shamanic agent of society, to keep close and careful tabs on the players in this most complex of real-time theatrical scenarios. We are warriors for peace in a global theater of war and peace, a Tolstoyan sort of historical space-time framework translated into our third millennial domain of everyday dharma and karma, that nag. Okay, well, I came up with the idea a few days ago that I think we should label the group of us here in this society who mean peace. What about the name Peace Force? We have an Air Force. What about a Peace Force here in the United States, which would be constituted at its nucleus of returned Peace Corps?